Okay, Sally has been asked to write an equation for the line shown here, which approximate the sales data in the scatter plot. She decides to use the second point, this one right here, which has the coordinates 2, 1600, and the last point, this one, which has the coordinates 10, 2100. What is the equation of the line in slope-intercept form? Show your work. So what's your job? Your job is to do what? What's the question asking you to do? What should your answer look like? Nobody knows? She's been asked to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. Well, what is slope-intercept form? Y equals mx plus b. So that's what your answer should look like. But obviously, it's not going to be y equals mx plus b because you got to figure out what the m is and what the b is. In this scenario, which one is very simple to figure out, the m or the b? The b, because the b is just the y-intercept. So I'm going to leave a space for the m. What is the b? The y-intercept. Where does that line hit the y-axis? This is 1400. This is 1700. So this would be 1500, 1600. Doesn't it appear to hit at positive 1500? So that's your y-intercept. Now we also need an m, the slope. And how do we do that? Correct. You use the slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And to be able to use that formula, you have to have 2 points, x value and a y value, and another x value and a y value. Well, didn't they tell you the 2 points to use? So I'm going to go ahead up here and label them. I'll label this one x1, y1, and I'll label this one x2, y2. So now that I've labeled those points, what goes in the y2 place? What goes in the y2 place? Right, 2,100. What goes in the y1 place? Correct. What goes in the x2 place? And then minus. Okay, what does the top simplify to? What is 2,100 minus 1,600? 500. And then 10 minus 2? 8. And then what does that become? Right, 62.5. But we don't want to leave it like that because you know how when you have the equation of the line, your m, your slope, is always a rise over a run? So we want to keep it in fraction form, but we just need to reduce this fraction. So let's talk about how to do that. If you do 500 divided by 8, it will give you what y'all told me, 62.5. But if you want to keep that as a fraction, do alpha y equals, and then look at number 4. See how it says f to d for fraction to decimal? It'll also go backwards. It'll go from a decimal to a fraction. So you hit number 4, and then you hit enter, and there it is in reduced form, 125 over 2. Okay, so the equation of your line is y equals, hold on, it's freezing up. 125 over 2 is your slope, and then you put that beside the x plus 1,500. That's all you do. That's the final answer of this line in slope-intercept form. Did anybody get that right? Okay, a couple of people. If you had 62.5 here, that's technically correct, but just remember we always like our slope to be a fraction so that we know the rise and the run. We know that the line rises 125 units and then runs 2 units. So it's a very steep line because it rises a lot more than it goes over. So it'll be a very steep line. Now I know it doesn't appear to be super steep in this picture, but that's because the y-axis is 1,100 to 2,300 while the x-axis is only 1 to 10. Okay? That's why it doesn't appear to be as steep as it really is. Okay, now today we're going to practice doing unit conversions, which is what we started Friday. We did some examples in your flip book. Turn to page 8 in your packet. It looks like this. Okay, so now that we have pints in the top, we must put pints in the bottom. Do we know anything about pints to cups? Right, 1 pint equals 2 cups. So now we're finished with the conversion chain because our goal was to make it to cups, and we've made it there in our chain. So we simplify everything else by crossing out quarts with quarts, pints with pints. That's why you have to have one on top, one on bottom, so that they'll cancel out. And then you just multiply straight across. What is 4 times 2 times 2? 16. And then on the bottom, you just have 1 times 1, so it's 16 cups. So if 4 quarts equals 16 cups, what is 1 quart equal to in cups? 4. Okay, any questions so far? All right, now let's go to 2A and 2B. All right, we start with 6 cups. So that means cups has to go on the bottom of that first fraction when we start multiplying. Do we know anything about cups straight to ounces? James, do we know anything about cups to ounces? If you look in the front of your packet, there's a lot of them right here. And I see something about cups and ounces. Okay, what do we know? Correct. Okay, so this chain is already finished because we were trying to make it to ounces, and we have. So we cross out the cups with the cups. Then when we multiply the numerator, 6 times 8 is 48. The only thing in the denominator is a 1, so it's just 48 ounces. Okay, 2B, what do we start the chain with? 1 pint. Okay, and then 1 pint is in the top, so pints has to go in the bottom, and we're trying to get to cups. What do you know about pints and cups? All right, 1 pint is 2 cups. So we have now made it to cups, which was our goal. So we cross out pints with pints. In the top, you have 1 times 2. In the bottom, you just have 1, so 1 pint equals 2 cups. And really, the conversion chain wasn't even necessary on that one because right here on your paper it says 1 pint equals 2 cups. Okay, so if you see one like that, you don't even have to do the work. You just write 2. Okay, 3A and 3B. Okay, 3 yards is what we start with. If yards are in the top, now yards has to go in the bottom. And do we know anything about yards straight to feet? Correct. 1 yard equals 3 feet. Okay, so now we are finished with the conversion chain because our goal was to get to feet, and we are there. So you cancel out yards over yards. The numerator becomes 9, and in the denominator there's only a 1, so 3 yards equals 9 feet, which makes complete sense because 1 yard is 3 feet, right? All right, 3B, we start with 96 ounces. Okay, so what has to go in the bottom next? Ounces. Do we know anything about ounces straight to quarts? No. What's the only thing we know about ounces? What do we know about ounces? Right, 8 ounces is 1 cup. So that means we're not finished with our chain. So what now has to go on the bottom? Cups. Cups is in top. Cups needs to go on bottom. Do we know anything about cups to quarts? What do we know about cups? Right, 2 cups is 1 pint. So now we need to continue our chain by putting pints in the bottom. Do we know anything about pints to quarts? Right, 2 pints is 1 quart. Okay, so now we can finish up with our chain because we've made it to the desired units, which was quarts. You cancel out all the other units because there's 1 on top, 1 on bottom for all of them. In the top, it's just 96 times 1 times 1 times 1, which is 96. In the bottom, it's 8 times 2 times 2, which is 32. And then what is 96 divided by 32? 3. So if 96 ounces is equal to 3 quart, how many ounces are in 1 quart? How could you figure that out? If 96 ounces are in 3 quarts, how many ounces are just in 1 quart? 32, a third of 96. All right, number 4, A and B. Okay, 2 quarts equals how many cups? So we start with 2 quarts, which means quarts has to go on the bottom of the first part of the chain. Do we know anything about quarts straight to cups? I don't see anything. I see that there is 1 quart and 2 pints, right? And that means now we have to put pints on the bottom, and then what can we do? What can we do now? Do we know something about pints straight to cups? Right, 1 pint equals 2 cups. So we've made it to cups, which is what we were trying to. We cross out all the other units. And then in the top, we have 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. In the bottom, you just have 1 times 1, which is 1. So 2 quarts equals 8 cups. Which makes complete sense because it says on our paper, or maybe it doesn't. I thought it said 1 quart was 4 cups, but it doesn't say that anywhere. All right, 4B. 4 cups equals how many ounces? So we start our chain with 4 cups, which means cups has to go in the bottom next. Do you know anything about cups straight to ounces? Correct. 1 cup equals 8 ounces. So now that was a short chain. You've already reached your desired units of ounces. So you cross out the cups and then multiply straight across. 4 times 8 is 32, and then over 1, so just 32. All right, number 5. One mile equals how many yards? Right, this was one that was in your flip book, so there's no need to do a conversion chain when you already know it. Okay, right here in our book, it says 1 yard equals 1 mile equals 1,760 yards. So there's no work required. All right, 5B. We have 160 ounces given, and we're trying to take this to pounds. Since ounces is what we start with, ounces goes on the bottom next. And do we know anything about ounces straight to pounds? Anybody know anything about ounces to pounds? Correct. 16 ounces equals 1 pound. So now we've made it to the desired units, pounds. So we can cancel out ounces with ounces. In the top, you just have 160 times 1. In the bottom, you just have 16. So that would be 10 pounds. It's the same thing as 160 ounces. All right, number 6A. $384 ounces equals how many gallons? So you're going from a very small unit of ounces all the way up to gallons. So since we started with ounces, we have to put ounces on the bottom next. What do we know about ounces? Right. 8 ounces is the same thing as 1 cup. Okay, but we're only to cups. We're trying to get to gallons. So now cups goes on the bottom. What do we know about cups? Right. 2 cups is 1 pint. And then we're now at pints, so it goes on the bottom. Do we know anything about pints? Correct. 2 pints is the same thing as 1 quart. And now we're at quarts. Do we know anything about quarts to gallons? Right, 4 quarts is 1 gallon. So that was a pretty long one, and that's because you're going from the very smallest to the largest. So now I've made it to gallons, which is what I wanted to make it to. So ounces crosses out ounces, cups with cups, pints with pints, quarts with quarts. Now I multiply straight across. The numerator is just 384 times a bunch of ones, so it stays 384. The denominator is 8 times 2 times 2 times 4, which is what? What do you get when you multiply those 4 numbers? 128. And then when you divide 384 divided by 128, you get 3. So 384 ounces is 3 gallons. Okay, now I'm going to give you a few minutes, and I want you to finish 6B through 10. So the 9 problems on the lower half, I want you to work on your own for the next few minutes. If you need help, ask somebody beside you, and if they're not able to help you, come up and ask for help from me. Is page 9, 1 through 5, part A and B. Make sure you show some kind of work. You may now switch out.